Nick Hardwick, welcome to the American Glutton Podcast.
Ethan, thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Dude, I'm so excited to talk to you about the Hardwick lifestyle and also lose like alignment. I haven't heard that before. And then I was like, fuck, I mean, I feel like I have a body type that's similar to alignment. What's lose like alignment?
That's right. So lose like alignment, I played 11 years in the NFL, and immediately I got put on injured reserve week one. It was my 11th season. I had a degenerating neck, and I had probably 200 or 300 stingers through the course of my career. They didn't really know any long-term ramifications of it, and I just kept getting them during my last training camp. And I got one on Monday Night Football week one, blocking a guy named Calais Campbell, which, if you're familiar with the NFL, he looks like Xerxes. I mean, he's like 6'8", 320, and he's just arms everywhere, and he's mean, and he plays pissed off, and he's awesome. He's an awesome player, and it's not like he was trying to hurt me or anything. My neck fortunately and unfortunately, I'm 6'4", but I think I should only be 6'2", but I have the neck of maybe a 6'6" guy. So it's like long and skinny, and it's out there playing the center position. Anyway, neck started breaking down, got put on injured reserve. And I knew from the minute I started gaining weight that when this whole ride was done, that I was going to lose it as fast as possible. And you would hear coaches kind of reiterate to you, when you're done, you either go one way or another. You either get up to 400 pounds or you're going to lose it all in a hurry. And I decided I'm going to let this weight go and not hold on to my old lineman past and the job that I had, and really the necessity of having that body. And I lost 85 pounds in about 5 months.
Wow.
And it just seemed to, especially at the beginning, melt off of me.
Right.
And it was, you could imagine, like I was probably consuming on a daily basis anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 calories just to keep my weight up. I was lifting heavy and often, 6 days a week training just to keep my size and some hypertrophy and keep that whole deal going. And when I stopped all that, I was like a candle. And I got down to about, you go from 7,000 or 8,000 calories down to 2,000 calories. There's quite the deficit that you're creating already. And, you stop training the musculature the way that keeps the size on, and stop feeding the beast. And all of a sudden I got down to, and this was like a moment, this was a moment of clarity for me. I was in a yoga class, and I weighed in afterwards, and I stepped on the scale in the locker room, and I weighed 202.
Wow.
And I looked in the mirror from the front, and I was six pack, and I felt really lean and good. And I had that hot yoga high that was going on. And I was like looking at myself, and I was like, man, 3 more pounds and I'm going to be 199, and then I'm done. And then I turned and I looked at myself, like my profile, and I thought, man, if you walk out in these streets and there's any kind of riot going on, you're going to get your ass kicked. So you better start going. You better go home and eat. So I never made it under 200. I probably should have, just for the sake of it, but I never got under 200, and I never looked back. And I ended up getting up to about 230, and I kind of toggle between like 225 and 240-ish now. I like to use bumpers.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience. I think I was 210 pounds. And I just was like, a light breeze will knock me over. This doesn't feel right. And I was so emaciated, and it just was like, it made me feel yucky.
Yeah. How tall are you?
6'1". I'm not as tall as you, but I was very big. Yeah, it was, and I had a weird experience. Do you know Dr. Huizenga? He's a sports medicine
Wayne
guy. Wayne Huizenga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like crushing myself to lose weight. And at about 250 pounds, I was like, I just have no idea what a goal is anymore. I'm 250 pounds. I'm doing 6, 7, 8 hours of cardio every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went in to see him, and the first thing he said to me was like, you got to lose a lot of weight. He looked at me and he goes, you got to lose a lot of weight. You got to get to like, I want you at 185. And I'm like crushed, because I was hoping for 220,
You're there.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Or
almost there.
I was hoping for 220 and I was like, I could do 20 pounds. And then he goes, we're going to do a DEXA scan on you, runs the DEXA scan on me, comes back, starts to look at my chart, goes, something's fucked up. We're doing it again. Does the
He's like,
DEXA
this
scan?
isn't right. This
He's,
isn't
yeah,
right. Your
this
bones
doesn't
aren't
make
this
any
dense.
sense. Does the scan on me again and goes like, I don't know what to tell you. You're done. You don't need to lose weight. You're like 12% body fat at 250 pounds, and that's
Wow.
okay. And I was like, I started off when he was like, you got to get to 185. I was defeated. When he said you're done, I was defeated. And I was like, I'm going to show this fucking guy. I'm going to get to 220. And then I got to 220 and still didn't feel good. Like, it's so fucked how our minds can
Yeah.
like mess with us with all of that. You know what I mean? I went to the doctor. The doctor told me I didn't need to lose weight. And yet I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I was going to prove him wrong that
Either
I didn't.
way.
Yeah. No matter what he said,
Either
I
way.
was going to prove him wrong. Yeah.
And that's the mind of a competitor, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of what happens is I'm going to prove you wrong against all odds. You say I can't, so I'm going to do it. And you were just looking for a reason to keep going or, you know, to show some, you know, we don't really know why we're fueled or why we're driven the way that we are. But I remember being so competitive with the scale that every time I'd step on that scale and it would drop 3 pounds, I thought, let's go. You know, I'm winning. And then when it wasn't, and you know, you get in that. And then I also had a teammate who was doing the same thing at the same time as me. And by God, I wasn't going to let him lose more weight than I was.
Right.
And he ended up doing a great job too. And he looks tremendous. And, you know, he got to a really healthy spot and he's doing physically very well still. And we're 7-8 years removed from the game now and have held on to those losses, I guess. And it's such a, there's so much that goes into it, right? There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of effort that goes into it, but then there's also, I think what's really underrated in losing weight is shedding a former identity and finding kind of a new self underneath there, finding who you really are underneath that false. I used to think it was like an Orkin Man suit, you know, the Orkin Man commercial who comes in or the Terminex guy or whatever that comes in this big robotic suit and he's like all puffed up and ready to go. It's like, you know, people look at you a certain way and people treat you a certain way when you're a certain size, and you have to be willing to let go of all of that. And as a football player, it was, you know, you're not the big guy anymore. You're not the one who can walk into a room and command attention based on your size and strength and power. And, you know, you're not that impressive anymore as physically. However, you have to come to terms with the deep down you and your soul is still very impressive and very valid, no matter who you are or what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to imagine that it's so tricky for so many guys who, if they don't have a plan one way or the other, that kind of radical change can lead to disaster.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think regardless of what kind of plan you got in place, like, all right, here, I'll give you my story. I played 11 years in the league. I was a walk-on. I never played high school football. Walked on my 4th semester at Purdue University, played 3 years there, really only played about 15 games, got drafted with the 3rd pick of the 3rd round to the Chargers.
That's crazy. I mean, were you just that good in college?
I mean, I don't know. Like when I got to college, I was 195 pounds. I hit a growth spurt. I hit puberty again in college. I grew 2 inches, put on 35 pounds, walked on at 230. And I was too slow to play linebacker. So they moved me to defensive tackle and said, you need to gain 50 or 60 pounds. So I did that. And then they moved me to guard because they had a void at guard. And then our center got hurt. So I moved to center eventually. And I was a really good center just because I was a wrestler in high school. And I kind of had that as part of my background. And I mean, then I get drafted. I go play 11 years in the NFL. And it was like a dream, you know, I mean, like an absolute dream. I got a retirement press conference. Phillip Rivers cried at my press conference. All of my teammates showed up. Felt like the entire city was in our conference room. And 2 months later, I'm suicidal because I'm not with my friends. I have no identity. I've got no passion, no purpose, no corridor to help me make decisions. And I wasn't getting any dopamine or adrenaline release that I was used to from showing up every day, either banging heavy weights, being with a bunch of dudes, and fighting on a consistent basis. And so I wasn't getting any of that, and I was suicidal. And then eventually, we kind of turned the corner on that and got our life back together. And then kind of my passion and purpose has become really just helping other people and helping other athletes transition out and helping people lose weight in general and kind of reclaiming their health and life and just trying to do good, because I saw the very, very bad side of what was an unbelievable life.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question. When I think about like normal folk who, like, the difference between a professional athlete and like a guy who just wants to lose weight. Maybe a guy stops playing football. He needs to lose a decent amount of weight versus your average Joe who wasn't. Is it easier to get that guy, that athlete, to because I feel like they're accustomed to getting into the gym, so that can't be foreign to them.
Right. I think there's two types of guys in the NFL. There's the guys who have to eat on Thursday, which is the weigh-in day. So every team weighs in every single Thursday. And you get fined if you're overweight, and you get fined if you're too far underweight. So some guys like me, I had to eat a ridiculous amount, didn't go to the bathroom all morning up until weigh-ins. And I would go have breakfast, I would stuff water down. And when I was even younger, I would put lead weight in my pants so I didn't get fined.
My God.
There were guys on Wednesday who showed up to practice in sauna suits and taped their wrists and ankles and had sweatpants over the top and were just sucking water out of them. And then they would show up on Thursday morning in the sauna at 4:30, and there was a whole crew of guys in there. And those were the guys that have the natural propensity to hold on to weight.
Right.
And you could kind of tell who was going to struggle post football and who was going to have an easier time getting it off.
Yeah.
And so there's still, yes, there are guys that like to work out and there are guys that didn't like to work out as much, but in general, they know what they're doing in a weight room. They know how to move around. They like being in there for the most part. I mean, not everybody did. You'd be surprised. Like there were some ridiculous football players who did not like to lift weights.
Really?
Like ridiculously good football players that did not like to lift weights. Yeah, I mean, you would be amazed. We had a cornerback who, when it was too cold, he would cramp because he didn't have enough body fat, and he was jacked. He was jacked and he was shredded. He was, I know, no exaggeration, he was probably 4% body fat, just doing nothing. That was coming every day with a giant bag of McDonald's. Wow. And he didn't work out. We said he would pencil whip his workout. He would just walk around with a pencil and fill in all the things and talk to people for 15 minutes, and then he would get out of there. But he had the best body you'd ever seen.
He just had genetics on his side.
Just genetics. Yeah.
And so like, I imagine a guy like that gets out of it and doesn't even have to really think about it once he's done.
Now, he started training after he got out, and he is a monster now. I mean, he is absolutely just looks like a bodybuilder because he put some time and effort into it and figured out what he was doing nutritionally, and he looks amazing. But yes, the difference between kind of general population and an athlete, there certainly the athlete understands discipline and has a pretty high level of will built in and has improved that, time and time again. And, when you're working with general population folks, I think one of the hardest things is accepting failure is part of success.
Yeah.
And realizing that, even a professional athlete fails every day, all the time, has huge setbacks, but just keeps going. And that's how you just keep ascending is you're not afraid of the failure. And eventually you invite the failure because you're finding your weaknesses. And you've learned this in the weight room, that I've got to get to failure to get to growth.
Yeah.
And I've got to get to failure to be able to push more weight. And I've got to get to failure. It's like failure is a massive part of the learning process and growing process. And so the hardest part, I think, with general population people is when they have a bad day, that it doesn't turn into a bad week, doesn't turn into a month. And then all of a sudden they're just like, you know what? I can't lose weight. It's not for me. This isn't the program, or I can't do it in general.
And yeah, I think that's such a great point, because I think it also goes to like the people who haven't begun because they're avoiding failure. And it's almost this weird mental kind of catch 22, because you're like, I would look at myself and go, well, I am already a failure. Why would I pursue improving myself just to fail there? Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yes. Oh, yes.
so I'm going to avoid trying to avoid failing, even though I'm failing at what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's like this weird
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Yeah. To dig deeper into failure potentially. Like
Yeah.
to think that I can give everything I have and it still won't work. That can be crushing for people.
Yeah.
And so they would rather avoid giving everything they have and it be very difficult, or maybe that's not the right fit for them, you know. And there's so many reasons, and that's, I'm super mindful when people come into my program and when I work with them and talk to them that, hey, this may not be the right fit for you, but let's not assume that you can't do this with somebody else or with a different program or a different coach, even because
Right.
maybe I don't speak the language that you need to be spoken to, or maybe, you know, something about this just doesn't register, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you're a failure if you happen to not have success in my program.
Yeah.
So I think the language you use is incredibly important with people, and letting them know that failure is possible and it's also okay.
And like, to your point, and this is a bit of semantics, but like, it's also necessary in some aspects, right? Like, if we don't have it, then we haven't done enough. And that's not to say like I've failed at my goals, but I do need to fail at a rep to know that I've done everything I can to increase the muscle mass. You know what I mean? I do need to fail at a rep.
That's right.
And that can be, you can have various ways to define that, right? There's some guys who end up with a bar stuck on their chest and they say that's failure. And for me, I'm like, I think you failed 2 reps ago. I think the minute
probably
the minute it didn't look good, that's failure in my book. You failed,
right.
You know?
Right. But that's, I mean, think about that when it comes to like diet, nutrition. People go on business trips and they find out they've got a weakness on business trips because they come back and then they weigh in after the trip and they're like, oh my goodness, I put back on this amount of weight and I got to go on another trip. So, okay, maybe you're not yet equipped with the tools or the techniques on that trip, or haven't thought creatively enough about how to navigate that process, because there is a way around or through or over whatever obstacle is created. And it's up to us to come up with, and this was kind of a football thing is, and I talk to a lot of my clients who are former football players, is it takes a long time to learn how to stop the bull rush. It's just you have to get strong enough to do it. You have to have the right technique to be able to do it. And you're going to get beat on a certain move time and time again until you continue to learn. That didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. Yep, right. Got it. And you have this Rolodex of information. So that didn't work. That didn't work. That didn't work. Let me try this. But you don't quit trying, because eventually there is a solution for you. And we just have to find the right technique. And with the right coaching, you can also more quickly come to those techniques. It's like, let's hop with 2 feet. Let's reset our hands. Let's, there's a lot of things that can be done to stop a bull rush or a swim move, or, I'm getting beat on a run block. There's the same thing applies to winning a trip to Vegas for a bachelor party and not coming back and completely sabotaging yourself, or, having success on a business trip, or, hey, my family this past summer, we were moving houses and we had to stay in a hotel for 6 weeks. Well, like, I'm not going to get unhealthy in 6 weeks. I'm going to figure out a way that we can have some semblance of health and do our best and stay successful in the health realm and stay on track, and not use it as an excuse or a crutch, but just find a way to navigate that.
Yeah, I think for me, for the longest time, with food, I wanted to find something I could be abstinent from, right? I wanted to go like, well, I know that if I don't do certain things, my life is better. So if I can just find the aspects of food to do that with, I know my life will be better. But what I didn't take into consideration there is all the other ancillary work that I was putting into my life on top of not just doing certain things. And so when it came to the fact that, quitting carbohydrates or lectins or gluten or whatever the hot diet of the
Right.
early 2000s was in Los Angeles, when that either stopped working or I would go away and find myself in an airport where it's like, there's nothing gluten-free here. And I'm starving and I'm going to a town where they don't do gluten-free. There's no,
Yeah, they don't even talk about it there. They're not, they aren't there yet. Omaha, Nebraska is not talking about gluten yet.
15 years ago, they looked at you like you were insane if you said something like that. And it might be more common now, but like, and if you talked about like being low carb, it was really like you had a third arm growing out of your forehead or something like that.
That's the truth.
And so when I would have these setbacks, but I think it was almost intentional sabotage, because like if I ever set up a program for my sobriety, which is really paramount for me, if I ever set up a program where it was like, if any little thing goes out, my sobriety goes out the window. It's so fragile, but that's how my diet was for a long time. It was I expected it to not be a lot of work. I expected it to be just like one little thing, one little change.
That's what everyone hopes for, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for that one pill or that one change, or you cut this out and everything's going to be all better. And it may be for a brief amount of time, but eventually, it comes back around and your body's kind of craving some things, and it's going to find a way to replace what you have tried to abstain from.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that you've gone through all of I've literally tried everything, like every diet you could imagine. And I think it's a really, I wish everybody would try it. Like I thought about at one point putting together a course of, hey, do this, see how you feel for 6 weeks. Do this, see how you feel for 6 weeks. Because there's kind of that 6 weeks, 2 months period where I did vegan for 2 months. And that was probably 7 years ago. And man, for 2 months, I felt great. And then after that, I felt terrible. And I was honestly probably, I don't know, not doing it right, but I was trying to get my protein in. I was trying to balance it out, trying to blend amino acids and all those things. And I mean, maybe still there's a steep learning curve to doing that, or definitely did keto at one point along the line. I mean, I've done paleo, like everything you could possibly imagine. Then eventually you realize, and people like Spencer Nadolsky and RP, I know you worked with RP, and Alan Aragon, who's amazing with flexible diet, or Sue Kleiner, like all of these people, they've been telling us forever, for as long as sports nutrition and performance nutrition has been a thing, that it's just calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
But I do feel like everybody has to almost come to that for themselves. Because, and this, do you have kids?
Yeah, 4 and a grandkid.
Goodness, what? You have a grandkid?
Yeah, she's 6 months old. I have 4 daughters and a granddaughter.
Wow. How old are you?
46.
You look amazing. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Good job. That is super cool.
Yeah.
So, and some kids will do exactly what you tell them and just trust that it's right.
Yeah.
Other kids, my youngest, I can tell him something until I am blue in the face and about to pass out, and he will not listen to me until he suffers, or until he figures it out on his own. And that's okay. But that's kind of when you're like, when I'm, I guess, started in this, like, come on, you people got to figure this out. It's like, well, they'll figure it out on their own. They'll come to it when they're ready, or they'll figure it out on their own. And that's just kind of patience on the coach's part. It's like, hey, keep trying. Well, oh, you want to try keto? Go ahead, try keto. But
yeah.
How do you feel in your workouts? Yeah, I'm running low on energy. No kidding, huh?
No kidding. That's weird. It's so odd. You got no glycogen. My worry is, and look, I totally agree with you. I think that there will be some small group of people that don't really need to track calories, that once they start eating a certain way, stuff will fall into place, and it'll just be like, oh, I needed to get off that kind of food, whatever it is, processed food, dense sugars, crap
Yes.
like that. That'll work for some people. And I think that like there, I didn't have this experience, so it's kind of hard for me to believe, but I gotta say that I think there will probably be some people who eat a ketogenic diet who it agrees with them, and they're like, I can get much further on fat than I can on sugar. And to those people, I say, great.
Yes.
But I think that there will also the problem with any of these things is like the super zealot adherents to keto are saying to everyone, no, you're eating too many carbs, you're having some kind of insulin dysfunction,
Right.
and you can only lose weight if you do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I think it will all work, but truthfully, it's gonna come down to that you're eating less than you're burning. Whether that
Yes.
means we have to track it or not, I have to track it, because if I don't track it, and it's very loose. I'm not
Do
like
you
down
still,
to
yeah, I was going to
calories.
say, do you still track hardcore?
No, I'm now
Yeah.
at the point where I'm eyeballing stuff,
Yeah. Because
and but it's a version of tracking, right?
Mhm.
I was hardcore, so I really followed it closely. And then I was like, I know what a serving of chicken looks like. I'm peeling the skin off it. If, I'm usually making it for myself and it doesn't have skin, but if it's got skin on it, I'm peeling that off. And I want to eat the chicken skin, but I know that that's, 25 to 50 calories I don't need.
You don't need them, right? Yeah,
I don't
that, and
need them.
that's the whole thing. It's like, well, why do you do that? It's like, well, because I'm choosing, I want my calories to come from something different. It's
Right.
like I don't put any labels on anything. It's like, oh, that's good, that's bad. It's like, I don't want this skin. I want to
Yeah,
get my calories from something that's more meaningful to me than chicken skin.
exactly. A quarter cup of rice versus the chicken skin will get me further in the gym. That's it. That's the whole
That's
game.
that, and that's what I think is missed so often when you have people who go, you should be doing this. It's like,
Right.
how do you know what I'm doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, yeah.
What are you, do you know my goals? Do you know my daily routine? Do you know what I'm striving for here? Because if you don't, how can you prescribe a diet to me?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
because I get it. Like you get maybe older people that aren't banging, aren't getting their heart rate above 80%, aren't burning sugar on a daily basis. I get it. Yeah, I mean, you can come down, but still your brain's going to pull from the body one way or another.
yeah.
It's going to find sugar,
It's
gluconeogenesis, because
100%.
the brain wants sugar. It's going to find it.
Yeah, it's going to turn fat into sugar if it has to. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it can do it.
Yeah,
Um,
it'll do muscle, it'll pull it from the liver and pull it from the kidneys. I mean,
yeah.
eventually it's going to get sugar.
Yeah. My concern, which is I completely forgot, is we kind of had that we're having this evolution of people getting larger and larger and larger every year. We're larger, and
Yep.
there was a big jump because of COVID and people stayed home, where it was like a spike in obesity, as they're saying, like the biggest risk factor to having a bad outcome with COVID is obesity. A lot more people gained a lot more weight because they were
That's
at
right.
home. Makes
They were at
sense.
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, access.
Yeah. But
Access.
as we see that these kind of fad diets aren't working and the access to food is ever easier, and we're also at the same time kind of normalizing, well, you shouldn't have to work hard. You shouldn't have to work hard at a diet. And like there's a part of me which I totally agree. Like anybody should do whatever they want to do. Like I'm not saying everybody has to be lean, but I think when society as a whole makes a moral shift to let's normalize this thing because it's hard for people to get it under control, that to me, I go like, I don't know if that society is going to be around very long.
That's not what, yeah. And is that the society that we want?
Right. Yeah.
To me, it's not. And because it's hard to hear, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to hear obesity. It's hard to say obesity. It's hard to say, hey, I know it's going to be difficult, but we should probably get to work on this. We have, I mean, as far as people, we don't do a great job with our health of holding each other accountable. My wife and I were having this conversation today. oldest is a fifth grader, and he's in a fifth and a sixth grade school. And I think there's 1,500 kids in fifth and sixth grade in one school. They only have a playground that's suitable for 150 children at a time.
Wow.
So, and they only get gym class once every, I think it's like 27 weeks, something like that. So
21 once every 27 weeks.
So they go in 9-week blocks. So he did art for 9 weeks, he did music for 9 weeks, and then they'll go gym for 9 weeks.
Right.
And I'm like, gym is paramount to our, not only our physical development, but our mental development as well. So as a society, we're putting less emphasis on the physicality of it all when we should be putting more emphasis on it, because better in shape kids are smarter. They get better test scores. There's plenty of science to support that we should be focusing on keeping these kids physically active and capable. And, you know, like the things that I worry about with my kids, the most important thing that I worry about is their work capacity. Like, do they have physical endurance to be able to continue to work? Because, as you know, it's in a lot of businesses, the last man standing is the one who kind of takes the prize. Yeah. You know, it's not necessarily like this big victorious moment, but it's like, he's still here and he's still showing up and he's still willing to work.
Yeah, 100%. And especially in a day and time where kids, you know, like even I only have girls, so it's kind of harder for me to like wrap my head around if this is just my experience or this is just normal. But when I was a kid, after school, we didn't go home. We messed around in parks and we took our time. We took hours to get home. We had to be home by sundown, right? Which often was hours and hours later after school. School gets out at 3. You could sometimes have 5 hours to yourself before you have to get home. My kids never once did that. Not one time. Not one of my kids ever did that. And when I've asked other parents, I'm like, do your kids walk themselves home from school? No, absolutely not. That's not really a thing. And if they do, they got to get right home. They're not.
Right.
So this is anecdotal, but I believe it could be proved. There's a lot less activity. So if there's a lot less activity and there's a lot less gym, that's utterly wild in my opinion.
Yeah. There is a scared mindset, right? Like, if you do walk home, you got to get home. So I know you're safe and everything's fine and we don't have to worry about that. And we have so much access to media and stories, and this kid got, you know, kidnapped or whatever happened. So there is a little bit of that, but there's also, you can be punished as a parent. You can be punished. You can be chastised. Right. There's a lady who does free range parenting. Her name is Lenore Skenazy, and she wrote, I think, for the New York Times for a very long time. And the biggest story she ever published was about her own child who at 9 years old asked to be dropped off at, I think it was Bloomingdale's in downtown Manhattan. And at 9, and he wanted to be dropped off somewhere that he didn't know exactly where he was, and then catch the subway home. And it was like a 40-minute ride home. And they said, sure, we'll do this. And they practiced a little bit and they made sure that he knew how to read everything and how to be where he was going. And he made it home. And she wrote a story about that. And then it went viral. And she was on the Today Show and she was on all the different shows. And eventually the tone became, how could you be so irresponsible as a mother to let your child explore New York City without you? Right. And that's, you know, free range parenting. They had to coin it that way. There was like a family in Baltimore whose kids were walking to the park, which was a mile away from their home. And they kept walking there. Well, they got picked up by the cops and came home, and the parents got punished a little bit. I think the Child Protective Services called or whatever. And then they said, you can't do that. And then they did it again. And they got.
At what age are kids allowed to go off on their own? Like, because I was 9. I would, you know, on Easy. Saturday, you walk out your front door and say, see you, mom, and get on your bike.
And go to your buddy's house and you're all over the. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly how we grew up. That's all over the neighborhood. I mean, summer times, you weren't ever inside. You were just gone for the day, and you'd stop back in for bite to eat, and then you go back out again.
Right. You're drinking out of a hose. You're drinking out of a hose at a neighbor's house that you don't know.
Oh.
You're getting yelled at for messing with somebody's hose. Yeah, that's wild.
Hose water is pretty good though, isn't it?
Hose water is great. I wouldn't do it now because I don't trust hose water anymore.
See what happens?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we're not moving as much. I wouldn't, my 15-year-old daughter gets on a bike and I'm like, check it with me every 10 minutes. I want to know where you are. But she's 15.
Yeah, that's fair though. I don't have daughters. Gosh, I wish I did. I wish I had one daughter, because it seems to me like you obviously get to accept a different role.
Yeah.
Or you get given a different role. So my wife gets to be the lover and, give the comforter and compassionate for the boys. Well, I have to show them what a man is, and and I'm in charge of discipline, and like,
and I think that reverses with girls.
Yes, and it gets exhausting for me, and I'm sure it does for them too. But hey, like I tell them, you're not breaking my will.
Right.
There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and I'm sorry, I'm holding you accountable.
Yeah.
All the time.
With girls, mom can be disciplinary and I can just be the loving one. Yeah,
come on over here. It's okay, baby.
Yeah, exactly. And check in with me if you go on a bike ride.
Yeah, that's right, please, because I'm worried about you.
Meanwhile, she's got like a driver's permit. She's going to be driving any day now. And like, I still have those thoughts. And when I was a kid, 8 years old, 9 years old, I was gone. Man, you couldn't keep me in my house.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what different world. We live in a different world. Where'd you grow up?
Los Angeles, in the Valley.
Oh, you did. So yeah. But it was still different.
Totally.
It was totally different. And probably a lot different than it is now.
The thing I think about is like the difference was it was actually worse back then. And so I think there were higher rates of like kids getting messed with and all of those, kids on milk cartons and stuff like that. That was big.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And now, and we got very paranoid and we started reining in our kids. And so that settled down, but we didn't, it's like TSA and taking your shoes off. Like one guy had something in his shoes and now we're all having to take our shoes off every time we get on. It's like at some point, it's like the threat of a shoe bomb has gone down. We don't need to do this anymore.
No, but you can have a beer bottle opener on the bottom of your sandals.
Right. Exactly. Jesus, it's crazy.
So maybe that's what set the alarm off in the first place.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. I think there's all these unintended consequences. And so when we go like, diets largely don't work, I say, yeah, it's true. They don't largely work because people are doing bullshit diets.
Yeah. But they're doing BS diets or they're not doing it.
Right.
Like the self-reporting is off.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's a really interesting thought that I've had recently, because I'm coaching high school football here in our hometown, and it's a huge program. We've got like 185 kids, and for 2 straight years, they were back-to-back state runners up. So it's like a big, legit program. And I haven't been around offensive linemen in years. Since I was done, I didn't get into coaching, and now I'm finally back into it. I was coaching my kids and I'm still coaching their teams. And then I'm coaching the high school offensive line. And it's been wonderful for me, just like being back, kind of feeling like with my people. The interesting thing though is like I went for a long time without banging heavy weights and smashing food and like trying to put size on. But now that I'm with the offensive line, I'm in a group of bigger guys that value more size and strength and power and all those things. So here I am finding myself like benching and deadlifting and doing things that there's no way I would have pushed this kind of weight even a year ago. But the thought to me kind of came is it's normalized behavior.
Yeah.
And so wherever you're trying to get to, whether it's trying to get smaller, trying to get in better shape, or trying to be more successful in this realm, or whatever you're trying to get to, you have to get with a group of people who has normalized the behavior and the habits that you're striving to achieve. And that was just a super moment of, oh, now I kind of do see why people struggle, because
Yeah.
one, their food environment at home is probably not great. So like you talked, just being around food all the time during COVID was detrimental to a lot of people's weight. Just having access. I mean, the number one thing for addiction is don't have access. Well,
Right.
if you're a food person, a food addict, standing next to the pantry and answering emails and just being able to walk into the fridge at any moment, or hey, I'm bored, had a stressful meeting, I got off the phone with the boss, I was doing a sales call, whatever, now I'm going to go and immediately go to dig into the fridge. Like, that food environment's really important, but also the people environment that you're with is
Right.
also super important. Like, find the gym with the type of people that you want to be with. I train at a gym now that's all bodybuilders and big lifters. And it's like, well, no kidding. I'm going to lift heavier weights because everyone's lifting heavier weights. And that's what we do here.
Yeah.
In the offensive line, we do this. We go out and we smash Mexican food. And, that's normalized behavior. So,
Right.
when it comes to working with clients, it was a great moment for me to go, some of that is very challenging for people to be an outlier within their own group. If say you're a businessman or woman, you're traveling or you're taking a client out to dinner, everyone expects this is the behavior that we have on client dinners.
Yeah.
And this is the food that we eat. And this is the wine that we drink. And we get gluttonous. And, this is because it's on the company dime. So let's do it. Everyone's got that same mindset. Well, it's hard to be the person sitting there that says, I'm going to have a soda water with a lime, and I'm going to have it's very difficult to do. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, though.
Yeah.
To be that outlier within that normalized behavior, it's tough.
It's such a great point. And I think, like, I've only looked at studies where they've had a negative connotation, right? The things that we kind of want to get away from, and it shows that they're all contagious. It's all
Yes.
contagious. You can develop some of this stuff. You can have never experienced it before, start hanging out with a group of people, go into it going like, yeah, that's not for me, but I like these guys, and you can catch it. That's just the way that works. And we're talking about obesity, addiction, all that stuff can be contagious. I don't see why the good stuff also can't be contagious. You know what I mean? You go around, you go like, here's what I want. And, like, I talk about like sober bartenders, like, because for the longest time, when I started dieting, I would go on such a severe diet and I would get obsessed with cooking food for other people. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it would always, not maybe that day, but lead to my diet failing, because I'd have to taste it, and then I'm spitting it out, and then I'm spitting out part of it, and then I'm going like, well, what's one bite? And then I'm like sitting down to the meal, right? And like, you want to get sober, the last thing you should pursue is like being a mixologist, right? It just seems so fucking obvious.
You're swimming upstream. Yeah,
right, exactly. You're
really making this more. Yes.
Go be around people who, like, you have this idea, here's what I want for my life. Great. Go be around people who are doing that. You'll be more likely to get it. And that's not to say, like, you got to turn your back on your family, who all might be boozing it up every night or eating pizzas. But I know for me, when I got sober, the people in my life that still drink for a while stopped drinking around me. And when I went on diets,
awesome.
Yeah, the people that eat whatever they want, they stopped doing that around me too, because I had conversations with them and I said, like, look, I love you. I'm struggling with this. Is it possible that for a period of time, we don't have Domino's pizza in the house? Because when Domino's pizza shows up, it's really hard for me to not eat it. And you'd be surprised how many people who love you would go like, I get it. Yeah, we're not going to have Domino's pizza. And then you create a group of like-minded people,
I think that's where a lot of people miss is the failure to communicate. It really is at the beginning. I am trying to live a longer life. I am trying to be a healthier husband, better dad. I want to be a better friend. Like, I want to be here to experience more of what we do and be with each other for a lot longer. I'm asking you to help me.
Yeah.
And when you find true friends, they're willing to help. They will get on board. They will do it with you because they're real friends.
Yeah.
They're like, oh crap. And they don't even know. They don't even know that what they're doing. They like Domino's pizzas here. Ethan smashes the whole pizza. It's like, well, this is just what we do.
Right.
And it's just like we're in the groove, and it's not malicious on their part. Hey, we're going to order Domino's because screw Ethan. It's not that. It's just they haven't. Everyone's in their own life, in their own head, and they're enjoying your company, but they don't realize how that's affecting you. And
Yeah.
so I think what happens a lot is with that failure to communicate, there's resentment on both sides where you don't, if you're the one that's trying to do whatever and you don't communicate what you're trying to do, then you're leaving these people out and you're cutting them off and you're not answering calls, or you're weird to be around because you haven't communicated what your goal is. And then on the other side, they're like, she's changed. He's
Yeah.
changed. Like, something, what's going on? It's just, I don't know what's happening. And then there's a resentment built up, but it's just all of that can be broken down if, and I like to describe it to my people as like, invite them to be on your team.
Right.
Just invite them on your team and ask them for help. Hey, I'm doing this. I would appreciate it if when we got together, if either I could bring my own and you wouldn't mind, or if we could change up just a little bit.
Right.
You know, we could maybe have some healthier options, or we could, instead of going out to dinner all the time, maybe we could go play pickleball, or maybe we could, you know, like, can we just go for a walk? You know, can we normalize going for a walk, or want to go get a workout together? That'd be cool too, right? Because then we're both getting intoxicated, we're around each other, we're talking, it's great.
Right. It's amazing. We can have the exact same experience doing something that is on my plan.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll help us both out. But I think you, I guess, fell into it kind of naturally as, hey, would you mind for a little while? And
well, no, but it took me a while to actually figure that out, because again, for 15-ish years, I wanted it to be carbohydrates, or I wanted it to be my blood type, right? I'm just eating the wrong foods for my blood type. If I simply eat the right foods for my blood type, I don't have to think about anything else. And unfortunately, none of that is true. It just isn't true. You know?
It's not. There's so magic isn't real.
No. Yeah. I want it. If I can just eat from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. every night, I can eat chocolate cake and In-N-Out and animal fries and get myself sick with food, and I'm still going to lose weight. And then it's
because you only spike your insulin the one time, and that's right. What really matters.
Why am I the only person that this isn't working for? Everybody says this is working, and yet it's not working for me. I'm broken. I'm wrong. You know, it took me a long time to go to my wife and say, like, hey, you know, I understand that you're eating diet ice cream. We like enlightened diet ice cream, but even when I'm cutting, if I'm being really strict, that'll screw up my day. And she's like, and she'll, go like, no, we're gonna, lay in bed. I'm gonna eat this diet ice cream, and then I'm eating half of it, and then I'm going and getting
let me get a little bit of that.
Yeah, and meanwhile, if it's just in the freezer, I'm not even really thinking about it. So I have to say to her, like, hey, I'm sorry to inconvenience you at all, but give me a week where there's no enlightenment in front of me. You can eat all you want, just don't do it in front of me.
Yeah, do you mind going out to the garage and eating that ice cream? Right. Just come on, I'm in bed and you bring me in bed. Like, don't drag it in here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's when my wife and I first moved in together. She was a soccer player at Purdue and I was a football player, but she had to finish school. And then when she finally moved out to San Diego and was in the same house with me and lived with me on a daily basis, she gained, it was almost instantaneous, 25 pounds.
Yeah.
And she finally realized, she goes, I can't eat every time that you eat, because it was every 3 hours. I mean, I was on that every 3 hour deal, but in not necessarily in the bodybuilding sense, but in kind of the, hey, let's go to Rigoberto's and get their Diablo shrimp burrito. And
Right.
then after that, then we're going to think about dinner. And then, we'll be thinking about dessert already while we're eating dinner. And then, what's for breakfast tomorrow? You want to go out to eat? Yeah, I'd love to go out to eat. Of course. Who doesn't want to go out for breakfast? That's fun. Like we're just, and she's like, this doesn't work. Why can you just go by yourself to go get a burrito and you go
Right.
eat over there and I'll stay here, maybe go for a walk or something like that. And,
Yeah.
once she had that realization, because I couldn't stop eating at that point, unfortunately.
And then that's
She
the
had
thing,
to.
like you can't just assume that we're gonna just naturally exist that way. There's so much food around us at all times, and there's gonna be the desire to eat, and like who wants to go sit down with somebody else and just watch them? It makes me uncomfortable on many levels. Like I feel like, why am I taking up space in this restaurant? My buddy, I'm not joining in on this thing of eating. It's awful.
It is. Here, this is a thing that I thought about as you were talking about. When I'm cutting or when I was losing, I like to make food for other people. And that is, I think, very common. I did that. I was a wrestler in high school, and I cut my senior year. I cut from 218 down to 170. So I lost 40 pounds my senior year. And I obviously couldn't eat anything doing all that because I was pretty lean to start with. I mean, I looked disgusting. I mean, I was gaunt and bags under my eyes, and teachers were worried about me. My clothes were falling off and just looked awful. But the one thing I loved to do, I loved watching Emerald Lagasse cooking shows, right? I love watching
the
cooking
best
shows. And then I would make food for my family, but I wouldn't eat any of it. I would just look at it. And it would like comfort me in some strange way. But I do think, and I don't think this is uncommon because I see this, is when a parent is finally taking charge of their health, that they give the excess, they take that baking out on their kids, and they let their kid have everything that they can't have, because in some weird way, it satisfies their craving for the food, at least temporarily.
Totally.
At least somebody's getting it. If it's not me, at least it's somebody.
There's that connection with it. You're like, if I totally know what you mean. I took my family to Europe to just go eat at places that Anthony Bourdain had on his show. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even eating. Best show ever. But I was like, we're going to St. John's in London. We're going to see Dante the Butcher in Chianti. We're going to San Sebastian, Spain. And I'm going to watch you guys eat. Okay, get ready. I want to watch you. I watched him eat it on TV. Now I'm going to watch you eat it in real life.
Did they talk local politics and let you just sit in on it?
It was awesome. I'm glad I did all those things, but I wish I'd tried some of the stuff. You know what I mean? Like I had some meat here and there, but like I was at a dinner once with Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, and Roberto Benigni in Rome, and Roberto Benigni's like telling me this is the best pasta in my country, and I'm like, I understand. I don't eat pasta, and he's like deeply offended. He's like, you must eat one piece, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm not gonna do it. And now I'm like, I'm a fucking moron. I should have eaten a piece of the pasta. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Hey, that's some pretty intense willpower, though.
Yeah,
really. I mean, you got to pat yourself on the back for being able to turn down Roberto Benigni.
Well, but
Roberto Benigni was Johnny Stecchini, right? In one of the movies, Johnny Stecchini.
Yes, Johnny Stecchini.
I love you. This is beautiful.
Yeah. He's amazing. I had willpower in those instances, but that was still back where when I finally started to realize that just not eating pasta, I wasn't going to lose all the weight I needed to lose. The wheels utterly fell off. You know what I mean? So like, I would go like, I'm not going to eat carbs, and I'd have like some weight loss. And when the weight loss stalled, and then even when I'd start to gain weight, because like you can gain weight eating meat and cheese, it's possible. Olive oil,
Yeah,
like,
that's
I'll
right.
tell you right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's 1,200 calories that you just dumped on a salad.
Yeah. I was so careful that I kept my broccoli intake to no more than 35 grams of carbs a day. but it would be swimming in butter and oil. You know what I mean? And like I lose some water weight and then I'm starting to gain weight again. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. If I'm just
That's
going to
right.
gain weight, I might as well really gain weight. And so it was this weird thing where it was like, I wish I'd had that epiphany at dinner with Roberto Benigni and gone, you know what? Let's get a pizza after this. You know what I mean?
Come
Let's
on,
eat
yeah.
all of it and then go for a pizza.
Yeah, we'll deal with the after effects here in a couple days.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be
Exactly.
fine. But hey, look at you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I
You
feel
know?
we figured it out. We feel like, as to your point, you know, people will eventually figure it out. But that's the thing. You talked about people will eventually figure it out. And I eventually figured it out. You figured it out. I know a bunch of people who have figured it out. But as societally, the average, the size average moves up, as the you know, I I think people should be accepted. I think like this whole thing of like accepting people, yeah, people should be nice to people. I don't want that. But
Yes.
when you have medical doctors who are advocating that like weight loss isn't a metric for health, I just go like, this is scientifically
Well, yes, it
inaccurate.
is.
Right.
Yeah. Yes,
Exactly.
it is. Yes, it is. It doesn't mean that they're bad people.
Right.
But
Exactly.
yes. And yeah, we can separate those two. We don't have
Yeah.
to have one doesn't mean bad person. It
Right.
just means has trouble with food.
Yeah.
That's or and a lot of times like I really deeply believe this is food, drugs, alcohol are kind of the sometimes it's chicken or the egg, right? Like sometimes it's yes, that drives poor decisions, poor sleep, poor habits, all those things. But a lot of times people striving intensely for success are working themselves to the bones or stressing themselves out wildly, are not sleeping and are exhausted on a daily basis and their brain's tired and it's just searching for survival.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like this high school football coaching at this program is super intense. Like there's days where I'll get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And this is the first time in a long time that I've experienced this. Like I've viscerally felt this is I don't want to eat a salad.
Right.
It's actually felt like too much work to chomp through romaine lettuce at this meal that I don't want that. I want something that more easily dissolves in my mouth and just goes away and gives me energy.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about, the crunching through broccoli or asparagus or kale or all those things they're even more laborious to chew.
Right.
And then when I had that realization, I was like, man, you're making some interesting choices here lately. It's like, I'm exhausted. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's it. Maybe I need to prioritize a little bit more sleep when I can, because yeah, you're still like, you have an obligation. There's a responsibility. Everyone's holding you accountable and you're holding your people accountable too. So yes, but we can still fit a salad in. And
Right.
we can still
Exactly. We
make
can
slightly
find a
better.
place.
We
Yeah.
we can still make slightly better choices.
Yeah.
And but I do feel we have as a population, as a human population, we have put such an emphasis on our efficiency and our ability to work and to strive for success that we are damaging our health because of that, because we continue to push and strive and chase. And it's like at some point, I look at life as a wavelength. What goes up has to come down on a wavelength and they balance each other out before they come back to the midline. The higher you go, the harder you push, the more you work, the more stress you have, the lower that fallout's going to be. And then that fallout, you chase that fallout with more food that's easier to eat, hyper palatable, drugs, alcohol, whatever feels good at the time, get me back up. And it's interesting. Have you had Anna Lemke on?
Uh-uh.
Anna Lemke, Stanford clinician, psychiatrist. She wrote a fascinating book called Dopamine Nation, and
Oh, wow.
she talks about all of this. She is amazing. I think Joe Rogan had her on recently, actually.
Okay.
So she is a great guest to have on all addiction, on food, on pain and pleasure, and kind of the connection between the two of those. But I really do believe that as people put themselves into, those states, and then all of a sudden you're looking for that quick hit to get you out of it. God, I'm suffering right now. You're in this actual dopamine deficit where your body's not at homeostasis, it's searching for it.
Yeah.
And so we make poor choices to dig ourselves out of the hole.
And for me, and I experienced this with food, with drugs, with booze, and now I even get these weird residual experiences anytime I quit anything. So like if I got a photo shoot and I quit salt, it's as though I have to tell myself, this isn't heroin. I'm not getting off heroin. Anything, you know what I mean? Like my body starts to freak out. What are you withholding from us? And like, it's so weird, but like life becomes dreary. It becomes gray. There's a pallor over everything. And it's like, there's no joy. I can't experience happiness. And it's only the fact that I've given up stuff, experienced that, and clung on for sheer life through that to the point where I go like, wait a second, did I just smile? Is life a little bit brighter? Is it going to be okay? You know what I mean? Like getting through those things where you go like, because I want the dopamine hit all the time. And now I'm just having dopamine to keep my eyes open, right? That's all it's doing. And the minute I give it up, it's like, you will never get dopamine again. All the natural ways you used to get it, they're gone. And you gotta kind of confront that. Like, I'm not going to be happy for a minute, you know?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. She describes it as a 4-week. She
Okay.
goes for a lot of people going on a dopamine fast or whatever, for lack of a better term, it takes about a month for your
Right.
body to reestablish its natural dopamine drip.
Okay.
Because we didn't, as humans, evolve to be around what we're around and have these intense spikes and lows and food around us. Like we worked, basically our reward system has been inverted to where we used to have to suffer on a daily basis, walking 10 miles a day to get a handful of berries and nuts and hopefully catch an animal.
Right.
That would be fantastic to get that little reward.
Yeah.
So we had to work an insane amount to get a very small reward. Now we don't have to work for a massive reward or reward. So you get that dopamine dump. And so our world's been flipped on its head. And so to me, it makes sense that we continue as a population to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We have to fight that. We have to fight that. You have to fight that as a population. If we're going to exist, we have to fight that.
Yeah. I mean, it to me, it's like anything else. If we saw that, you know, car accidents were getting worse and worse and worse, we would go like, let's figure this out. They weren't so bad. Now they're getting worse. We should figure out them not being so bad, right? Whatever the metrics is, cancer's spiking, a lot of more cancer. Well, what is it? Is it Roundup? I don't know. I'm not saying that, but like,
right.
If that was the case,
we would get to the root of the problem.
We sure would. I don't know why this is so much different.
Money.
Right.
Because these companies that are producing, we have drugified food.
Yeah.
And
then we have drugified obesity too. So we both ends they're making money.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. On the treatment of it and on the, I don't know, it's not the prevention, the cause of it.
Right.
There's a massive amount of money going around and we're a capitalist country. So it doesn't seem like there's a great way for it to end. It really doesn't, because there has to be, it seems to me, some type of, and I don't know how you would do this and the way that we're constructed. I have zero clue how this would happen. Is there would have to be some type of legislation to be put into place to make high calorie dense, low nutrient dense food either wildly expensive like cigarettes are or impossible to get to.
Right.
And it's just cutting down the access to all that.
Yeah.
But like people will tell you, food in it, and you know this, food in itself is not inherently fattening.
Right.
You know,
no, I mean, it's
so
like,
what do we do?
It's like anything. It's like, I'm a guy who can't use drugs and alcohol. And I'm a guy who also wants them not criminalized, because I don't think that the criminal justice system is helping anybody who have problems with drugs and alcohol. So I go like, I don't actually have a solution. The only solution I have is discovering what I can do for myself to help myself and my fellows who are interested in help. That's it. That's my solution.
That's it. Well, and you're doing a good job. I mean, this is part of that, right? This is
Yeah.
part of it. Talking about it, making it public is part of the solution. And I think
100%.
it's probably the greatest thing that you and I can do
Yeah.
is
I
just
agree.
continue to normalize that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
That's about all we can do.
Yes, sir.
Unless you want to run for city council or something like that.
No, I have no
Yeah.
interest in running for city
Zero.
council or
Zero.
any interest in like making laws about food. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
think there will be some major unintended consequences that we can't even consider. You know what I mean? Like
Always happens, doesn't it?
it
It
does.
always happens. I mean, legalizing marijuana has basically led to the fentanyl crisis. Here we
It's
are.
crazy.
Here we are. You know?
Yeah, the drug dealers are now competing with legalized marijuana and going like, we got to give them something better. Let's
Yeah.
give them something that can kill 50% of the people who use it. Okay.
Yes. Oh boy.
Oh man. Well, Nick, thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation.
Thank you. And I'd love to have you on my show.
Anytime. Anytime.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
Thank you,
Talk to you
Ethan.
soon.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.